Are you sitting comfortably? Got a glass of wine in your hand or maybe a dram of whiskey? Relax. Let's have a talk. G'day, welcome back to Bootlosophy, and if we haven't met, my name is Tech. I'm filming here on a fairly cloudy winter's day in Perth in Western Australia, which is Wajak Noongar Boodja. Now, I thought what I'd do in this video is to maybe give you the benefit of some of the things that I've learned, and also to argue against some of the advice that you might get from social media about boots. And so let's just get straight into it with the 10 things that I wish I'd learned when I was still getting into boots. So the first thing that I learned is that low price does not mean low quality. Often it's a combination of value that equals the quality, not the price itself. For example, I have two pairs of boots here. The Thursday Captain, selling for US $199, and the Goodyear Nomad Heritage boot, selling for an incredible 150 US dollars. Now, both of these are cheap, but they're not low quality. I mean, yes, I wouldn't wear this to mine iron ore in the ranges of the Minnesota hills. Leave that for the Iron Ranger. But for all intents and purposes, this is a sturdy boot. It's Goodyear Welted. It's got cork where you expect the cork to be. It's got a steel shank. The stitching is good and doesn't fall apart. It's made of reasonably good materials. They will change the materials around in order to meet the price, for sure. And price, you have to remember, it's a function of construction and marketing. You might be able to spend enough money to make a pair of boots and then add sufficient profit for the goal that you want without actually creating a very expensive boot. Don't forget, price is also a function of reputation, so that, for example, big names might carry big prices. Now, okay, so it's not a P&W boot. It's not an Alden. It doesn't have the construction quality of a P&W boot. It doesn't have the name of an Alden that carries a price. But the quality in materials in this price is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. As for the Goodyear, this is a quality boot. If you go and see my review, you'll see that I really, really like the construction of this, and I'm flabbergasted by the price. It uses all leather materials. It uses all the right insole material, midsole material, Vibram outsole. You've really got to understand that price balances value. And in a boot like this, the price is low, but value is incredible. So I think what you should do is do your due diligence. Don't look at websites and go, oh, cheap, I'll just go for the $600 boot because I'm sure that'll be well worth the $600. Do your due diligence. Watch reviews, not just mine, but watch mine is good. Watch reviews and learn from what you see. What's lesson number 2? It's about sizing. Please don't learn your size from Facebook comments. Firstly, Facebook have got some fantastic boot appreciation groups. But even in those, you have an XYZ boot appreciation group or an ABC boot lovers group. People join them to criticize brand XYZ or brand ABC. No idea why. Anyway, a lot of people have a lot of opinions, but your feet are a certain foot size that's different from theirs. So don't learn your sizing from Facebook groups. And for goodness sakes, please don't try and size your boots from your sneaker size. Different brands of sneakers size differently. And even some brands, some single brands where they manufacture worldwide, will produce slightly different sizing feet depending on which factory that particular model comes out of. The thing that you have to do is to know your Brannock size. That's that shoe measuring device that you get your feet measured in when you go to a proper footwear store. So go to your nearest store that has a Brannock device. I mean, you can try and trick them and say, I want to buy a pair of boots, but I don't know what size is. But honesty, I think, is the best policy. And just say, look, I'm not buying right now, but I'd love to know my size so that next time I come and I'm looking for a pair of shoes, I know exactly what size I am. Can I get measured up? Don't forget, though, that your Brannock size is is a function of length and width. It's not a function of volume. So make sure that you understand the three-dimensional shape of your feet. Also, get to understand the different sizing conventions. I'll tell you what, a size number is merely a man-made convention. For example, this is a pair of Trickers. It's sized 7.5 true to size. I'll talk about true to size in a minute. But it's size 7.5, although my feet are sized 8.5. Why? UK sizing versus US sizing. Same size, they decided to give it a different number. The width on these is a number 5 width, and this is the average width. But I measure 8.5 D width. So again, even the D is a man-made convention. And if you look at UK boots, okay, this might be a 7.5 number 5 fitting, but you go to R.M. Williams and they're a 7.5 G width. Even amongst UK sizing conventions, they make up their own widths. Get to know what sizing and width convention the boots you're interested in are in. And then if you look at American boots, even more so. This is an Oak Street Bootmaker's trench boot. And it's true to size, that phrase again, at 8.5. This is a Grant Stone at 8. And if you look at it, I mean, I'm going to do a Dale here. It's not a precisely scientific measure, but they're the same size. And that's because when Grant Stone made their boots, they decided to size them large. So that if you're an 8.5, you size your Grant Stone boots as an 8. But Oak Street Bootmakers have decided that they're going to last their boots and size them true to size. So if I'm an 8.5, I wear these in an 8.5. Be careful, and also be careful about how they fit, because even in a Brannock sizing, heel to toe is very important. But even more important is heel to ball of the foot. The ball of your foot might be up here or down here, which means that where the boot wants to bend is not where your foot wants to bend. What do? You talk to the brand. Make sure you do your due diligence. Make sure you understand what their sizing conventions are. And then you give them examples of your other shoes. Okay, now, lesson number 3. Yes, you do need to break your boots in, but you don't have to bleed while you're doing it. People often say, oh yeah, these are tough boots and God, I had blisters to break them in. You don't have to. Look, a lot of people think that tough breaking equals a quality boot. But unless you're working in them, and maybe even so, do you really want to find out by finding blood all over the floor? They can be uncomfortable when you first put them on. But if they're painful, something has gone wrong. You may have got the wrong size. You may be wearing the wrong socks, maybe too thin a sock in a stiffer boot. All boots need break-in. But you don't have to put up with the pain of it. Learn which brands, because of their materials, their last, their construction, break in easier, and start from there. Don't go straight into a pair of Nicks. I love these boots, but if I had bought them as my first heritage boot, I would have been put off forever. Because they're stiff, they're tough. It's a really great working boot. It's really heavy. But you know what? Even these boots, when I put them on, were comfortable because they were sized right, they were made right, the materials adapted to the shape of my feet almost immediately. I did not wear this for the whole day on the first wear. I think that would have been a bit silly. I wore them for 2 or 3 hours in the house for several days, And then I wore them for a long walk every day for several days before I then put them on and wore them all day. I think you have to ease into your break-in, and that's something that, because we're so excited getting a new pair of boots, we forget. You can condition, but be careful because you don't want to over-condition them. Conditioning them does sometimes relax the leather a bit, but so does the warmth of your feet if you're careful doing it. You might want to consider for stiffer boots to condition them from the inside. Just get a bit of conditioner, cream or grease, and just get your hands inside and rub those hot spots that you're starting to develop when you wear them for the first time. You can flex the boot because there are two places in the boot that should be flexing when you're walking with them. The first is the ankle, because that's how your feet tend to move. They're backwards and forwards. So flex them. Watch an hour's worth of FBI on TV and just sit there flexing them. The other place to flex is across the ball of the foot. Now, these are really tough, but gradually you can just flex them over and over again, and gradually they can start to bend and be a little easier on your foot. Also note, particularly in social media, is the heel slip? I mean, I get a lot of comments when I do unboxing. Do your heels slip? Yeah, of course it does. It hasn't broken in yet. The boot is doing that. Your foot wants to do that. So obviously it's going to lift at the heel. But the more you gradually break your boots in, the less heel slip you'll feel. And if you continue to have heel slip, I go back to what I said at the beginning, you've probably got the wrong size. And while I've got these in my hand, let me talk about lesson number 4, which is not all leather is the same. Somehow we instinctively know this, even when we're beginners. Yet we're surprised when each leather boot shows different characteristics depending on the leather and the tannage. We all say, oh, this creases so much. Like these Parkhurst natural Dublin boots. Oh, gosh, it's so creased. And you look at another one and you say, oh, it folds quite well. But all leathers are not the same. For example, veg tan leathers, which this is, will crease quite a lot. They will create these sorts of wrinkles and folds. And that's part of the beauty of the veg tan. Even this Truman boot in Smoke Rambler from Charles F. Stead, other Ramblers can be extremely soft. This is not, because Truman used a particularly heavier gauge of Rambler to make these boots. So they're actually quite stiff, even though Rambler is touted often as being a softer, more supple leather. So depending on the tannage, depending on how it's tanned, whether it's oil tan, double stuffed, famous Chrome Excel with all its oils and waxes, natural Dublin being veg tan primarily, get to understand the different characteristics of different leathers so that you're not surprised by how different leathers react on your feet and on your boots. So get to understand the characteristics of each leather that you might be interested in. Again, do your due diligence so that you're armed with information before you make your decision. All right, on to lesson number 5. It doesn't have to be Goodyear welted, believe it or not. Now, reviewers will always say, and I did as well, I do, that Goodyear welt is probably the premier way of crafting your boots, because Goodyear welting is a good, recraftable, waterproof kind of method of construction. That's true, but there are so many other forms of construction, and it is horses for courses. For example, there is stitch down, and here is the Blackbird Luchador, and it is a stitch down method of construction where the uppers are flared and then stitched down through the sole. Absolutely nothing wrong with it. It is slightly more difficult to recraft because you do want to have your cobbler make sure that they're putting the new stitches through the old stitch holes, which is Not the easiest thing to do, but it's not impossible, particularly for a skilled craftsman cobbler. There's also Welted, which is a different type of stitch down, arguably more water resistant. But how many of you are actually going to swim through a dam? You know, most of us will be walking in the rain with these, and maybe we might, in the northern hemisphere, walk through slush and snow. But I don't think we're going to be swimming. I don't think you need divers' waterproof boots. And then, of course, you have things like rapid Blake stitch, otherwise known as Mackay or Mackay stitch, where, like a Goodyear welt, the uppers are turned in, and then a Blake stitch is done on the inside of the boot, attaching the uppers, the insole, and the midsole. And then a second stitch is put on the outside where the midsole acts as a welt, and then through the proper outsole. Again, a lot of reviewers will say Blake stitch is not waterproof, and that's true to a certain extent because Blake stitching on its own goes right through from the inside to the outside to keep it on, unless it's glued on, which again still has holes that are approachable from inside and outside. Blake rapid stitch, a Mackay stitch, on the other hand, has two stitches, one on the inside that's protected, and then one on the outside. So again, it's not that different from Goodyear welting. Even in Blundstones, all right, this is a heritage boot, at least in Australia, but it's like cement construction. It's not like a Timberland, which is truly cement construction. They actually glue the outsoles onto the uppers in the Timberland. These are extruded polyurethane. They extrude like a toothpaste tube into a mold, squish the mold onto the uppers, heat it all up, and then cool it off so it's stuck by heat. Totally waterproof. Even better, I think, than Goodyear welting or any other the stitched types of construction. I think the lesson is know what you're going to use your boots for. It is horses for courses. If I'm wearing this around a muddy construction site, I might wear a pair of Blundstones. If, on the other hand, I'm going to the office and I'm generally walking through some rain puddles, maybe some snow, I might choose a Welted or a stitch down construction. I mean, P&W boots use stitch down construction, and I don't hear anybody complaining that they're not water resistant and they're not durable. Okay, lesson number 6 is a doozy. Now, there's a lot of people in social media who reply to newbies asking, oh gosh, I bought this boot and it's got a nick in it. Should I return it? Or somebody who's actually into boots may have bought a more expensive boot. Perhaps it's their first Pacific Northwest boot. And they say, oh, I received this from Nick's, White's, JK's, whatever. The stitching is a bit wayward down here. Should I be making any noises about it? And I bet you $1 to 10 cents that somebody will pipe up and say, hey, it's a boot, dude. Just wear it. It'll be worse off as soon as you wear it. Yeah, that's true. But how would they react if they went to pick up their Ford truck off the dealer, and as they drive off the ramp to take it home, they notice a scratch on the bonnet? Do you think they're going to go to themselves, oh, it's a work truck, dude. I'll just drive it because I'll scratch it the next day? You bet your bottom dollar they're going to stamp on the brakes, go and see the dealer and say, hey, what's that scratch doing there? I want another vehicle. Right? When you buy something new, you expect it to be new. And it's okay. Some people new to boots might not know what to expect. So I think it's perfectly fine to reply to them and say, hey, look, I don't think it's that bad. It is a handmade boot after all, and sometimes stitches might go wayward. Or, gee, I think that might be an issue, I mean, it's so close to the edge that stitch might actually scrape right off. Go and talk to them. There's nothing wrong in teaching people who are new to boots, but to immediately say, it's going to get worse as soon as you put them on, is silly. It's silly. Scuffs and marks will happen when you wear the boot. But straight out of the box, for a $600, $700 boot, even for a $200 boot, that you have just unpacked, you don't really want to see a scratch on it, do you? Okay, let me talk about boots made in different countries. And that's lesson number 7. Support local, but please don't be xenophobic. Buying locally made and from local brands, I think, is good because, firstly, it keeps the jobs going in that particular industry. It supports your local companies and taxes. They pay taxes. It supports the economy, the local economy, and it retains skills in a particular industry. Also, buying local means it's not shipped all over the world and a lot of carbon getting burnt and all that sort of thing, if that's important to you. But don't not buy from a foreign country because you happen to think it's badly made. Grant Stone, made in China. Every time I pick one of these up, there will be one comment that says, $400 for a boot made in China? Pfft, not me. Now, I'm not sure whether that's because that person doesn't think a made in China boot is not worth $400, despite anything you might say about the absolutely insane quality of a Grant Stone boot. Or perhaps they don't like the politics, but they didn't say so. They said $400 from a made in China boot. Pfft, didn't say anything about I'm not supporting communism. That I can understand. But get to know how these are made. Get to know the quality and then ascertain the value. Get to know that this factory is not a communist-owned factory. It's a private factory. In fact, I believe the Grant Stone owners, the Grant Stone factory owners that are contracted by Grant Stone, I think they come from Taiwan. Jim Green, the Numzan, made in South Africa. Lots of people like this, but again, I'll get a comment, it's made in South Africa. Why would I buy that boot? Because it's bloody well made. It's like a South African bullock. It's tough. And that's why you buy the boot, not because it's made in not because it's made in America as opposed to South Africa. Craft and Glory. A little bit of a pretend Pacific Northwest boot, I'll grant you that. But it's well made in India. I see nothing wrong with it. I think the stitching is perfect. I think the water buffalo leather is just exceptionally supple yet durable. So why would you not buy an Indian-made boot? Again, I've had those comments. Made in India? No, I'm not buying it. I don't know whether that's because they think India is a third world country, which it's not. I don't know why they think that maybe Indian companies can't make boots. They've been making boots since the 1800s. Or is it some form of inane racism? I don't know. Okay, lesson number 8. Use the right conditioner. And these are just some from my collection. I've got Bic 4. I've got some Sophia cream. My favorite Venetian shoe cream. Saddle and leather dressing from R.M. Williams. Red Wings all natural leather conditioner, and liquid mink oil. Look, when I started, I sort of knew that you had to use the right conditioners for different leathers. I knew that not all conditioners work for all leathers. But I did think that some conditioners might work on a category of leathers. For example, particularly oily leathers, I could use one conditioner right across the board. Dry leathers, I could use something else across the board. I think that's true to a certain extent, but you do have to be careful about what you are conditioning. Get to know your leather and do some research to find out what's the best conditioner for it. That doesn't mean you need to end up with as many conditioners as I have, because I'm a boot reviewer and I'm actually trying them all to see what works on what. But do get to understand at least the type of conditioner that works for a category of a particular tannage. One of the dangers is over-conditioning your leather. If you think of leather as a once-living fibrous material, it's made of little fibers. So if you're pushing conditioners into it, particularly oils, what you're doing is you're getting those leathers to absorb the oils and open up. And what that might do is weaken the leather. So don't do that. Also learn what darkens the leather and what doesn't, because sometimes if you have a particularly lighter or a colored leather, you don't particularly want to either darken it or hide the imperfections in it, such as, for example, Rambler leathers. Learn which works with what, and then keep disciplined. And lesson number 9 is dear to my heart. It is learn from reviewers for sure, but don't be influenced, all right? Boot collecting is a hobby that you should enjoy and have fun with, or it's a tool for your work in perhaps a blue collar job, or even it's a tool in the office because you have to wear a certain type of shoe or boots in the office. So it's something that is workwear. It's not about keeping up with the Joneses. It's not about lifestyle. So when you watch a reviewer, don't look at them like, oh, I wonder what they're wearing. Look at the jeans they're wearing and those boots. Oh, I must follow him. Look, we are hopefully a mature crew of men and women who like their leathers and their boots. So understand what a boot reviewer is telling you about the boot, about the conditioner, about how boots are constructed, and then decide for yourself what's good for you and what's not. Just because I buy a pair of really heavily made Knicks boots and I'm an office worker, you don't have to. I'm a reviewer. That's why I'm getting it. You don't have to. Now, you might like them and you might want to get them just for the sake of owning them. It's a bit like a stamp collection, right? I've got the penny black. That's what I've wanted all along. Never going to lick it and stick it in an envelope. Of course not. So don't be influenced to buy just because I say I like it. What I'm trying to give you and what you should learn from other reviewers is the getting of information. Understand what it is that I'm reviewing, understand the pros and cons, and then find out more. But don't be influenced. Don't jump onto that buy button immediately. And one last thing about influencing versus reviewing. Reviewers will start off for fun. I started this channel for fun because I watched people like Nick English, Dale Bassista, the Happiness Carpenter, John, and I really enjoyed their videos. And I thought, you know what, I'll throw my hat in the ring and I'll try them too. And eventually, if you're doing good videos and you're getting good subscriptions, brands will reach out to you and offer you a free pair of boots to review. But some reviewers, it's very tempting not to stay objective, particularly if you're a big enough channel, and I'm talking hundreds of thousands. You get offered upwards to $20,000 a video if you will say nice things about a pair of boots. And you try and be objective, but when you're earning that sort of money, it's kind of hard to really reinforce the negatives that you might see. So watch for the tone of people like myself changing. If my tone ever changes, stop watching me. I've been influenced to be an influencer. Just keep an eye on how objective we all are. And finally, lesson number 10, my friends, enjoy yourself. Don't get put down by people on social media. Enjoy your boots. Feel confident. Express yourself in your boots. And, literally don't care what others say. Social media can be extremely cruel. There are people out there living in their mother's basement, scratching their wife fronts with Cheeto-stained fingers, and they can't avoid being keyboard warriors. I've had to learn this, and you should too. You're into boots because you like them, love them, enjoy your boots. Clean and condition your boots for fun. If it ever becomes a chore, you either have too many boots or you're starting to get out of the game. Don't go crazy spending all your money. Don't try and keep up with the Joneses. Be selective in what you like and want. Don't be influenced by the next best boot or the next fashion trend. Buy the boots that you love because of the things you love about those boots. So there you go, a 10-point rant. I think that might be a record for YouTube, right? Look, I hope you found that interesting, if not useful. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video. Don't like it if you don't like it. That's fine. But remember this, even if you put a nasty comment down below, it's actually upping my algorithm. So think about that. But please, if you liked it, click on like, and I hope you'll subscribe if you're not already. And stay in touch because I'll come up with more boot reviews next week, and I'll see you then.